Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz. I am so excited about this card. I'm featuring some Kat Scrappiness products and it is the funniest little box card. I can't even look at this. All these little turkeys, not a turkey, go vegan. You want to put the stuffing where? This box card fits in an A2 envelope, but it's wider than a lot of the other box cards that I've played with before. So this is the Gobble stamp set, and then there's a coordinating die set available as well. All these little sentiments are so funny. And then I grabbed this picnic table and this wreath from the Farmhouse stamp set, and we'll use those coordinating dies that are also available. But we're going to do some selective stamping. This is the 3D box card. And so you have the box base, and then you get these 3 tiers that go inside of it. I cut the base from some light green cardstock, and then I cut it again from some pale blue, and we're going to trim that down just to put on the background. And then there are 3 sizes of tiers, but I did 2 of the largest and 1 of the medium because I'm going to cut a little further. These are the A2 stitched hills, and I wanted to create layers of hills. So I'm getting started by prepping my card base, and I'm just folding in the side flaps on my box card. There are little score lines to show me exactly where that needs to happen. And then here are my hills. And I'm using the A2 stitched hills, and you can use these to create hills on just any card. But I forgot that there's a stitched hills add-on that is specifically for the box card. It doesn't create these different sort of, I don't know, like a hill on the left and a hill on the right. They're all just sort of mounded hills, but that would have been easier. So a heads up, I'll link that everything. I'll link everything below, but I'll link that one too in case you don't want to have to do this part. I cut 2 from the largest, and the first hill I'm taping all the way towards the top. And then this one I'll drop down a little bit, and that will create my sort of medium hill. And then on this medium one, I'm gonna again put that towards the top. I was worried if I used the smallest of the hills from the original die that I'd be cutting too much off the top, and I didn't want that. So I'm gonna do just a little bit of ink blending. This background blue piece is my sky, and I just want a little bit of texture in there because I'm gonna ink blend some other things, and I didn't want it to look weird. It's sort of not a cloudy sky, but just a sky that's got various shades of blue. And then for my hills, I'm going to come in with a slightly darker green ink, and I am just going to ink blend along the borders. It does not need to be the best ink blending you've ever done. We're on a farm, my friends. And so I'm going to flick this with all kinds of paint. These are my Kuretake pearl colors and gem colors. They're like a metallic watercolor. And I'm starting with some light green ink. Again, I'm just looking for some variation in the texture of that grass and to give it a little bit of bling. Like, I don't like fall cards that are just brown or just brown and orange. That doesn't work for me. I like to bring in some metallics. I like to bring in some like deep jewel tones to go with them as well. So I brought in some dark green, and now I'm bringing in some yellow. I figured maybe there's like corn or something else on the ground to feed these turkeys. I thought that was really cute. And I am just gonna flick away, and then I'm gonna find little flicks of paint all over my work surface for about 10 years. I colored all of my turkeys off camera because it took me a really long time, and this video is not short to begin with. So this little guy holds a sign, and there's tons of different sentiments in that Gobble set that fit on his sign. There's eat ham, eat chicken, don't pick me. I love vegetarians, and go vegan. And it's so funny to me, and they're so cute. You'll notice on my turkeys that I did not give them boring feathers. So this one has like some deep plummy, pinky, tones, and then I came in with my white gel pen and just added a few accents. I'm using some black pigment ink to stamp that don't pick me, and then I'll just put some clear embossing powder over that, mostly because I don't want to wait for it to dry. And this was faster. Anytime I have something small like this, I have this little mini clipboard I use so I don't burn my fingers, and that works really well. So this is the Farmhouse stamp set, and there's this little wreath. I think it says Home Sweet Home, but I don't want it to say that. I'm here for a funny, cute turkey card. So I am going to use, this is just highlighter tape, and I'm covering up that Home Sweet Home. This was a little trickier than some selective stamping just because I didn't want to cover up any of the wreath. And then I will ink that up really, really well. I was hoping to be able to do this with just one inking, but my ink pad's a little bit dry. So I'm going to come in after I add the ink, remove the tape, and I will stamp that down. And then I have this beautiful place in the center of my wreath to add one of those little stamps that fits on the sign. Sadly, I did have to do this twice, but I didn't want you to have to watch the taping again. It didn't take too long. I mean, it takes like a minute, but still. I will lift that off very carefully. I found ink like halfway up my arm after this one. So, you know, be careful with your tape removal. And then here I'm pulling Go Vegan, which again, very funny. This one and the Don't Pick Me, I think, are my favorites. And they fit like they were designed to go in there. But I don't want to have to restamp that wreath. So I'm just using that plastic piece that covers the sticky grid that's on the back in my MISTI, and I'm stamping onto that to make sure it's where I want it. And then once I'm sure, I just wipe that ink off because it's a slick surface, and I will stamp that. I go twice. Again, my ink pad's a little bit dry, but I also don't want to squish the fine lines of those letters. I colored the wreath off camera just to save some time, and then I'll take the die and I wiggle it until I can't see any black peeking out around the die, and I know that I have it centered. So I have my sky in the background, and I've trimmed off just right up to the edge, but you can see how it bows a little in there when I try to fold the flaps in. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim just a little extra right up to where that stitched line starts, right? The initial cut I just did with my trimmer and sort of lined it up with the top, that part that peeks out where the stitched line is, but it wasn't quite enough. So that's all I cut off. But that's enough. That makes sure that my card will fold flat into an envelope. So I'm going to begin by adding this then to the back of my box card. I love how easy this one is to put together. Like, I don't have to add the flaps on. And it's worth noting that these flaps are shorter than some box cards, which means you get more width to it. And I love that about it too. There's just more real estate to play with when you're building your scene. Next, I have my 3 hills, and I mean, these are the ones that come with the die set. So they're little score lines on either end, and I'm just folding over those flaps, and I'm going to figure out kind of what order I want these in. There's a wonky hill that I want in the middle, the left hill in the back, the right hill in the front, and I think that works really well for the scene that I have planned. I added double-sided tape, but then I'm going to add wet glue as well, so I get some wiggle room. And I'm going to line this first one up so that the score line butts up right against the front of the flap on the left-hand side, okay? And I'm going to make sure that I've got it exactly where I want it. For this next one, right, I'm kind of figuring out how I want my stadium seating, and they all fit, but just barely. So I'm going to trim off a little bit from the end just to give me a little more wiggle room. What you need to remember is that if you're going to cut off a little bit from one side, you need to do the same thing on the other. I'll figure that out later, but worth noting now so I don't forget. And actually, that is not the hill that I want there. That's the left hill, right? That's the one I want in the back. Well, again, I used wet glue and dry adhesive. And so when I go to look at this next hill and I'm like, oops, I have just a little bit of time to pull that off of there. But I still get a little bit of that instant grab from the tape, so I don't have to sit there and hold it forever waiting for my glue to dry, because nobody wants to sit around and wait for glue to dry. All right, so I trimmed off the side again. So I've trimmed off the side of the middle one and the back one, and now I'm going to line this up. I'm butting that score line right up against the end of the flap from the first one. Okay, again, it's a real tight fit. They fit, but it's tight. Then I'm going to add new glue to this one. And once again, I'm going to kind of butt that up against the one in front of it. Okay, you'll notice this one doesn't grab as quickly, it's because that I pulled that tape up once. So this is where I'm sitting around having to kind of hold it and babysit it. When I go to put everything down, I'm looking at the bottom. I want to make sure that the bottom of my hill is parallel with the bottom of the box. Okay, otherwise things are going to get glued in there wonky and it might not lay quite flat. So I'm pulling off my tape, and here's where I notice my back hill, the flap from number 2 overlaps the tape from number 3. That's a problem. It's a big no-no. Okay, I need them to secure to that side flap of my card base without those flaps overlapping. So I'm trimming off the tiniest little slivers at a time. And I'm going to show you, probably that second cut was enough, right? I have clearance, but I don't want to risk it. So I'm going to trim off just a little bit more. I also don't want my flap to be too short. That's what's securing it to the side of the card. Okay. So now I have to go back and make them parallel to the bottom of the card again. I'm going to hold them all at the same time. I'll use my left hand to hold everything flat. I use my little pokey tool to get underneath my double-sided tape. And now I'm going to add my wet glue one more time. Not a lot of wet glue, right? I don't want it oozing out, just a little. And then I will press that firmly and hold it flat. After a few seconds, I'll kind of let go carefully, cautiously, right? I'm sort of peeking. If I felt like anything was pulling away, I'd have pressed it flat again. But here I'm folding it the other direction. That's one of the ways I make sure that my box card got all squared up correctly. You can see that this will stand up on display really well. And it will also fold flat into my envelope. To begin putting my scene together, I have my Go Vegan sign, my wreath, and I'm going to stick that front and center towards the top, hanging from the sky. It's so funny to me. These little turkeys like, don't eat me. This little guy with the cardboard box on his head, so cute. So in a box card, I like to layer another piece of cardstock behind them because you can see my coloring through the cardstock. I don't really need it for strength. Like, I used 110-pound white cardstock, but this is just a personal preference. You absolutely could skip this. The cardstock I'm gluing behind it is 80-pound. It's really just to cover up the marker. Then I'm going to get the lay of the land and kind of figure out, where am I going to put all of these? I wanted to get all 3 turkeys on the front. So I have my pink turkey and my teal turkey fit for sure. And then I wanted my picnic table. So my original thought, there's my rainbow turkey, you guys. He's on the right in the background. My rainbow turkey I was going to have popping out from sort of behind the box, but it was going to be just his head. And I did all that coloring for his rainbow feathers, so I didn't. I might go back and add a 4th turkey. You'll see what we do with the rainbow guy later. But anyway, maybe another turkey peeking out from behind the Go Vegan sign or from behind the back of the box. If you put it above the top of that box card, it won't fit in an A2 envelope. You would need a bigger one. So I am just figuring out kind of what's my scene. I colored 2 different leaves here, and I thought I got more contrast with this sort of reddish brown one than I did with the yellowish orange one. So I'm going to add that one on. Again, the wreath and the picnic table are from that Farmhouse set, but the rest of these are from Gobble. Seriously, one of my all-time favorite fall Thanksgiving stamp sets of all time. When I add these into my box, I'm only adding glue kind of where they're going to overlap my hills. And then my reverse tweezers come in really handy because this box card is a little narrow. I can get my fingers in there, but I don't want to warp my box. So the reverse tweezers, right? And I have them kind of resting on my scissors there so they aren't leaning at a weird angle. And then I'll add this turkey. He's hanging over the right-hand side a little bit, but as long as I fold my box card to the left, it's not a problem. It will still fit in my envelope. And then those sort of feathers that are hanging out will just overlap that side panel that is sort of on top of the box card when it's flat. You'll see. So then I finished up by adding that last leaf. If I colored it, it's going on the card because it takes me forever to color. I promise I will have videos coming up where I show you my coloring, but with a box card, there was just so much else to show anyway. I cut another one of the bases and cut off the wings on the side just out of some white cardstock because we have to stamp my very favorite sentiment. It says, you want to put the stuffing where? And then I will heat emboss that again just because that pigment ink takes a hot minute to dry and I didn't want to wait for it. You guys, I can't believe I put my heat gun kind of over top the box of embossing powder. Not because I would melt it, but because it's blowing air. I'm so surprised. In editing, I was like, did I really do that? I did that. I did that. Okay, so this is going to fit perfectly on the back of my card, and then I will add my rainbow turkey, whom I love so much. And I'm just going to glue him straight down onto the back. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes box cards are a little tricky to write on. I can fold that flat, but I don't want to have to be that delicate. So instead of gluing that straight onto my card, I'm coming in with some of my removable adhesive, and I'm going to really like shellac that on there just in case I forget. It is removable, like it can be removed, but it's not going to fall off any faster than a regular tape runner. And then I will just wiggle that into place. But that way I can take that off, write my message, and then glue it on for real, for good, like for the final card. So here I'm folding to the left and the feathers of that turkey on the right, they're still within sort of my card. But this is it. I hope you guys like this card. I hope you like this stamp set. It is so funny to me. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Check out Kat Scrappiness. And I will see you next time.